This is a review of the iFlight SucceX 50A individual ESCs. These are the very narrow ones. These are only 8mm wide and are designed to go on very thin arms, such as frames like this one, the Hyperlow RS, plus also other frames like some of the stuff from Mode 2, the Dolphin by Flight 1, and those frames that have very narrow arms. This is, as far as I know, the only ESC on the market that is this narrow. There are other ESCs that are pretty narrow, you know, like the Razor by Lumineer, which I think is about 10 or 12mm. And there's a couple more that are kind of narrow, but something like this where all the FETs are in line and it's only 8mm wide, as far as I know, this is the only ESC like it, so it's very unique. I want to first of all thank Banggood for sending me a set to try. I actually ordered some more as well, so they're actually on 2 different frames right now. There is a link in the description to buy it from Banggood. It is an affiliate link, so if you want to help me out with the time I spent in this video and other videos, please use that affiliate link to order them. It's only a small commission, but it kind of helps with all this work I'm putting into videos like this. I'm not gonna wait till the end to let you know. Please subscribe to the channel. If you are here at this video and haven't seen the channel itself, go check out the channel. It's actually growing very well. I'm over 1,000 subscribers now, and it's just motivating to keep doing videos if you subscribe. So again, thumbs up to videos like this, and also subscribe to the channel. This is the intro to the review. The way I made this review, I actually shot little bits and pieces as I was building these quads, but they're, you know, it's kind of raw because I did it that way, but it's very honest in the way that I assess the ESCs, my impressions of it, and how I was learning my way through it, and my impressions. But as far as the conclusion goes, I do like them. I think they're great. They are top of the line as far as tech and quality. I've crashed them a couple times. I've broken arms already on them, and I haven't messed up an ESC yet. They are BLHeli32. They have a shunt resistor for current sensing and telemetry, and they have an integrated LED. So, and they have a very thick PCB as well. So they're definitely very unique. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna watch the footage of the build as I go through showing you the ESCs, and then all the way through actually putting them, getting them ready, shrink wrapped and everything, going to the frame. And then we're gonna have an outro, and we are gonna see some flight footage of the actual ESCs in action. It's gonna be a 6S quad, which is the other one I built, which is the motors that you see in the video. This is another one I built with Falco X Flight 1. This is 5S.
Perfect.
This is how the 50A SucceX ESC from iFlight arrives when you buy the entire set of 4. Let's open it up. So it comes with some shrink tubing. Comes with the ESCs themselves, nicely packaged. There you go. And then it comes with wiring and caps. The caps are meant for use with 6S. I would not use them with 4S, but likely with 5S I would use the caps as well, even though they say they're meant mainly for 6S. But just to be safe, I would definitely run them on 5S as well. When you buy them individually from Banggood, they show up in packages like this. I do like when companies offer ESCs and motors instead of 4s, but I don't like it when that's what they only offer. I like it to be where you can buy a set of 4 or individuals if you need them. Because sometimes I'd like to just buy one or maybe a set of 5, so a package of 4 then an extra one, for example, if I want to have spares. So this is how they arrive from Banggood when you buy the individual ones. And basically the packaging is not as pretty because it's not worth making a whole box, an expensive box like that when you're just gonna have one. But yeah, it arrives with wiring as well. It also has a cap, it has the ESC, and it has shrink tubing. Most of you guys already have shrink tubing and wiring at home. The caps in this particular size most likely not, so it's nice that they include them. This is actually, let's see, it's a 35 volt 220 microfarad cap, so it's nice and small. It's good for putting on an arm, and it's not wider than the ESC, so it's a good choice of cap. Now I actually got a set from Banggood, which is what this review is going to be based on, but I decided to order another set, and the main reason for that was so that I could do a build right away and be able to show them individually like this, and also on a build and have flight footage immediately. I'll admit I'm extremely excited about this ESC. When I first saw iFlight posted on Instagram, I think it was a couple months ago, January or something, the first thing I said was, shut up and take my money. Simply because it is very unique. I mean, some companies have already been making slightly narrow ESCs, but nobody that I'm aware of has made an ESC to target specifically 8mm arms. You know, you have some like the Razor from Lumineer, which is I think 10 or 12mm wide, and so on and so forth, but there's nothing that is made right now apart from this specifically for narrow racing 8mm arms. And you know, I mean, a lot of guys are flying 4-in-1s for racing, and this is one of the main reasons why, because most of the racing frames nowadays have narrow 8 to 10mm arms, and they're just too narrow to have individual ESC. So this ESC might help bring individuals back to racing, but regardless, a lot of the freestyle frames as well, for example the Hyperlows that I fly, have narrow arms. The Dolphin, for example, from Flight 1, even though they don't do individual ESCs anymore, they'll still run with this with a PDB. And a couple of the frames all have narrow arms. The Shendron Flacco has been around for a while. The Mode 2 stuff as well. But anyway, let's take a quick look here. We have all the FETs on this side. They're all lined up instead of being side by side like it's usual on most ESCs. The shunt resistor is here for this is a BLHeli32 ESC, so the shunt resistor is here for current monitoring. Even with the narrow space, it still has an LED right there, and there's the ground, signal, telemetry, and power. So you will notice that there is no actual signal ground. You got ground, signal, telemetry, and power. And I've noticed that on a number of the ESCs lately, that they're actually foregoing the signal ground, which is something that's been very important. The fact that the ESC alone doesn't have a signal ground basically tells me you probably don't even have to ground to do a signal ground anymore. In fact, I built a rig recently for long range without a signal ground because it's one of these types of ESCs, and it was fine. So yeah, you just have ground to ground, signal, telemetry, and power, and you're fine. Then the pads for the motors on this side, they are small, but they have enough room to make soldering pretty easily. As long as you're careful and don't go under the FET, you should be fine. Let's flip it over and take a look on this side. I'm not a super expert when it comes to some of the components, but I know what some of the stuff is. But I can see the MCU on this side, and then it's got all these caps. Your pads for power, telemetry, and signal actually go all on the side, so you can potentially wire right to the side or to the other side. The pads just basically kind of roll around. It's a very thick PCB, I'll check the specs for how many layers, but yeah, it's pretty thick. And yeah, it's very smartly laid out. As you might notice here, these are a little different. Let me turn them around. And the reason is there are actually two versions of this ESC. There's a V1. This is the V1 right here. And then there's a V2. They're not very different. The main reason for the change is that I was talking to iFlight and they added 2 more caps and changed the arrangement of the caps on V2. That offers a little bit better filtering and of course more capacitance, which is nice. But they're very similar still regardless, because I know V2 has a slightly better filtering and more caps. I'm actually gonna use this guy on 6S, which is gonna go with some T-Motor F60, and then I'm gonna use the V1 on 4S simply because it just makes sense. Okay, so this bit here is probably the most important thing that you want to see, and that is the fit on an arm. So this is a Hyperlow RS Plus. It's 5-inch, and we put this guy here. You'll see that it fits very nicely on the arm. Let me put it this way so you can see. That's good. There we go. So it fits right there with just enough room, if we move it this way a little bit more, to have enough wiring for the motor, and then the rest of the wiring that goes to the flight controller. I would likely put it like this actually, because the LED is on that side, so the LED up, and as you can see then the motor pads on this side, power and signal pads on that side with the LED there, and again BLHeli32, so we can feed ESC telemetry and current from here straight to the flight controller. And this is what makes this thing really unique. Now, the fact that they advertise this as a 50 amp ESC, BLHeli32 with an LED and a shunt resistor, because not all BLHeli32 ESCs have a shunt resistor, and then the fact that it fits the arm like that, it is one in its class. There really is no other ESC that I'm aware of, and I've been looking, that can do this. So now the real only thing that you need to find out before you buy this is how well does it hold up, and that's the reason why I'm going to build it on 6S. I'm going to fly it on 6S and confirm. If this ESC flies as cleanly as I expected and it holds up well to the 6S voltage, then it really is a winner, and I'd love to see more of it out there. Alright, so one thing I have to point out with these things is soldering is a little more difficult than it is with other ESCs, because the space is tight and the pads are small. I like to solder with a big spade regardless of what I'm soldering, unless I really need a small tip. I like to transfer heat fast. So these PCBs are very thick, so it makes it that when you want to transfer a lot of heat fast, because it gets sucked into the board really quickly, and if you don't transfer a lot of heat quickly, you'll get a cold solder joint or no solder at all. So I got this one done. It's dirty. I have to clean the flux off. Another thing I would definitely recommend is using liquid flux, a lot of it on it, splatter it on it, because it helps keep the solder joints tight and it keeps them from bridging. When it does, it kind of sucks the solder into each pad like the way it should go. I also I did the signal and telemetry wires first before I did the power wires. Now I have to put a cap on this because it's gonna be 6S, and after I looked at it, I'm like, this is the first one I did. And what I'm gonna do on this one's upside down, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the wires, because the pads go on both sides. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the power wires on the bottom, so I can then attach the cap at the top without having to put two things on one solder pad, because they are so tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to solder on these power wires. I'm using the same color because I like how it looks, so you gotta just be careful when you are putting it together not to mix your polarities. But like with this, I just kind of splattered this on, but that was a little bit much. But and also I'm running this hot at 750, so you have to work fast, transfer a lot of heat quickly. So here we go. Let's do this guy first from this side. It's probably pretty good. Let's do the other one. Okay. See, even I that have experience have a problem with getting these just right, and I'm very picky about solder joints, so I'm gonna try and do this one again. Okay, clean tip. And let's go for it one more time. Alright, so that's good. So now that the power wires are at the bottom, I'll just solder the cap to the top and the signal wires to the top, signal and telemetry. Alright, look, so this is definitely the way to go. Soldering the power wires to the bottom, and then the cap to the top pads. That way I avoid having to solder two things on the same pad, and when it's a tiny pad it makes it a lot more difficult. So signal and telemetry wires go on the top, and the cap goes on the pads at the top, and then the power wires go at the bottom. Just gotta be careful when you do this. I did the power wires first and then the cap. Just work fast, because the top can definitely melt the bottom and your wires can fall off, but I worked pretty quickly, so it looks like it held just fine. Okay, here it's everything put together. The other three ESCs look exactly like this. I wanted to show them to you before I go and put shrink tubing. They are conformally coated, just like I conformal coat everything. The solder joints are good. They are tricky because it's not easy. The pads are small. There's not a whole lot of space, so I got them as best as I could. As you can see, I put the power wires at the bottom, and then at the top, on the same matching pad to the top, I put the cap, and then the signal and telemetry wires. As you can see, it's shiny because it's conformally coated, just like I do everything else. This is all four of the SucceX 50s built and conformally coated with caps and shrink tubing. This is basically the final bit, and they're ready to get put on the build. Now that you've watched the process of me showing you the ESCs and how I built them and everything, before we watch the footage, there's one more thing I want to point out that's, I believe, is important. As you can see here, the ESC almost takes the whole length of the arm, and I will recommend a specific way of mounting it. And the reason is, if you take the ESC and mount it and just wrap the whole thing and make it almost part of the arm, if you happen to break an arm, there's a big chance you might snap the ESC as well, because there's a lot more leverage on it than on a shorter one. So what I definitely recommend you do is that this is not actually sticky. I usually mount ESCs with double-sided 3M extreme tape, but in this case I use foam, and the foam, yes, it sticks to the carbon, but it does not stick to the ESC. Then there's a point here. This is basically a point where the ESC is kind of fixed, and then it's sort of fixed on this side. So all you gotta do is put a little bit of tape. Actually, I would go even thinner than this, right through the middle, and the idea is that if you break an arm, there will be some give where the ESC will actually move instead of being one with the arm, and that way you protect the ESC from actually snapping. If you take a look here, I broke an arm. This one is not fully broken, but it's bent. But the ESC has enough give that it won't mess it up, and it's fine. I actually flew back even after I cracked the arm. On the other one, I actually fully snapped an arm, and the ESC is fine as well. So just keep that in mind. This is something I definitely recommend how to mount it in order to make sure you don't mess up the ESC in a big crash. So go ahead, let's check out the footage so that you see them in action. I shot the footage today, just a little bit earlier, and I hope you like it. Again, subscribe to the channel, thumbs up, and share this with your friends. If you buy these ESCs, please use the link in the description, and enjoy.